Sound of the waves. This is not a sound you hear in Jerusalem, is it?
No.
Nope. It's not even the sound of the waves at En-Gev. There's something here much more powerful. Yeah? Much more. Now I'm going to ask you to do the hardest thing I'm ever going to ask you to do. You ready for it?
Turn around.
Nope.
Spell
No.
ontology.
What?
Spell ontology.
Paleontology. That's exactly right. Hardest thing. I want you to look out here and listen to this. And I want you to think about it the way a Canaanite from Judea or an ancient Israelite would think about this. That is to say, I want you to be terrified and repulsed by it and never want anything to do with it. Try that. This is the deep. This is what creation was like before God got his hands on it and made dry land so people can actually live. And this is something that is not usable, not tameable, and something that lies outside of ancient Israel's normative existence. They don't want anything to do with this. Jonah goes down here and almost drowns. That's what this is good for. That's what this is good for. Moses has to push it aside so people can live. In Noah's day, it comes back and kills everybody but 8 people. This is something outside of the boundary of ancient Israel. A sheep and goat, dry land, living water people. And that mentality is something that rides all the way through the biblical record. Isaiah chapter 57, verse 20. Wicked people, people outside of God's plan, are like the tossing sea, which cannot be quiet. Its waters toss up refuse and mud continually. There is no peace, life the way it's supposed to be for the wicked. This is likened to those other people. And in Revelation chapter 21, the picture of the new heaven and the new earth, and I looked, John says in Revelation, looking at the new heaven and the new earth, and the old heaven and the old earth have passed away, and there is no longer any sea. This doesn't exist. Instead, you have the stability, the predictability of the dry land and the fresh living water. That's life for ancient Israel. All right? Told you, it's the hardest thing I'm going to ask you to do. Think like an ancient Israelite. Now, I mention that here because look what Herod the Great is doing. He's saying that the world that counts is this one. And you're conditioned as an Israelite to think 180 degrees opposite. So he bends the theater to face this. You're talking Mediterranean language, Greek and Latin. And Herod the Great builds himself a palace in front of you, behind me, on a spit of solidified sandstone, surrounded on 3 sides by the sea. The cosmic deep. He puts a freshwater pool in the middle, surrounded by colonnaded porticos, to have a little quiet spot like the bow of a ship pushing to Rome. What does this represent? Yeah? Is it a world to be conquered? Is it a world to become like you? Is it a world to embrace? Do you want to become this? Or is it part of the reality that we just have to live in and work our way through? The Apostle Paul said, be in the world but not of it. What does that mean out here? When this is where people can really have a good life in every way that the world says is possible. What does that mean? What does that mean? Herod the Great's palace out here, probably the spot where Pontius Pilate hung out most of the time, trying to say something to these irascible Judeans up in the hills who don't quite want to get it or be with the program. We'd rather throw Rome off and do it by ourselves, they said. Is that a better life or not? I don't know. What do you think? How much do you have to give up of who you are to embrace this? Maybe that's the question. How much do you have to give up of who you are as a believer in Jesus to embrace everything else that everybody else says is worth having? People draw the line in different places, and I'm not going to presuppose to tell you where to draw it. But you need to ask the question. How much is gained and how much is lost? Let's go see what Peter did. He had a hard time with the question. I want to sit over here and see what Peter did.